go. I'm Abby.
I'm Ax.
And this is really bad reviews. Today we bring you Jesus Christ Vampire Hunter. The worst movie you've probably never seen.
I'm gonna warn you, I'm gonna be eating, so you might hear some, crunching.
Alright.
But you know what? This podcast is probably gonna be as good as watching the actual movie.
Honestly, I'm hoping it is, because that movie brings me so much joy.
Right. So the movie was made in 2001 with over a $74,000 budget, which went somewhere.
Yeah.
You definitely can't tell.
No, you cannot tell that this movie had a budget. Like, from the filming, it existed. It's like a home movie. Like, you could have made this movie with a phone. Like, it's not anywhere.
And not a good phone, a 2001 cell phone.
Yeah, it's not
Did they have
like
cell phones in 2001?
I think they were still flip phones at that point. I don't know. Yeah, I think we were at flip phones. So,
all right, well,
so maybe you had to buy a cheap camera, but still a cheap camera, not a $74,000 camera. And
so,
yeah, and this film amassed over 80% Rotten Tomatoes, which is very surprising for the quality.
Yeah, it starred Phil Caracas. I don't know that I've ever heard that name before, but
yeah, yes. So we first wanted to break you into this movie by doing a quick plot breakdown. Now, I will say the plot is very scatterbrained, and there is a questionable plot. It exists somewhere. But yeah, we're just going to tell you a little bit more about what happens in this movie.
So it starts out with the, I guess there's a physical narrator. I'm pretty sure it's just some guy with a guitar talking about Jesus. He yells a bunch of, Bible quotes at the audience, at the camera. Something about houses of the soul.
He does. I forgot it. Just for me, real quick, did you rewatch it before we did this? Or has it been a while?
It's been a little while.
Okay.
But I remember what happened.
Fair enough.
Forget.
You cannot forget what happened. This movie will be ingrained in your head forever once you watch. Alright. Yeah. I don't believe he had a guitar. I watched it today. He just kind of randomly pops out of bushes. It's kind of weird.
He had a guitar at some point.
Does
There was a musical number in it. I think probably at the end.
There was only the one musical number. Anyway.
There were two. I know there were two.
I mean, at the end there's a song, but it's not like a musical number.
Alright, continue.
But back on topic. Next, we cut to a vampire girl who sexily kills another girl and steals the car. You can tell that this scene was supposed to be sexy, but it's just not. It's dying a little bit. And the first line of the movie is said here as she is on the phone and she says, "Where have all the lesbians gone?" Which really sets the tone for the whole movie.
There's a very sudden shift to priests talking. And one of my personal favorite lines is, "I thirst for nothing but justice."
Which is, I would like to throw in real quick. That line is said after Jesus offers him the priest lemonade. Alright, go for it.
The priests are concerned about girls being killed by, and I quote, agents of the devil. So they make this, plan. A little background on these priests is that they all look like hard rock metalheads. And the priests all share, there's 4 of them. three. No, there's three of them, and they all share a little moped.
Yeah, I lost. Okay, so the priests get on their little moped, their little shared moped, and they meet up with Jesus at a lake, I guess. I don't know. And they fight some vampires who, like, attack them at the lake. And Jesus tells the priest to bless the lake, but the the vampires kill the priests, and then Jesus blesses the lake and throws the vampires in the lake. And at this point, the priests are dead, or at least two of them are.
Yeah. So there is another priest who is not particularly important here. He gives Jesus like a little place to live. After all of his priestly brothers are dead, Jesus goes into town. He drives a moped while books of the Bible are whispered in the background. He gets his ears pierced, or I think only one of his ears pierced, and he also gets a haircut. There's a musical number then. He sings a song to get the people to unsuccessfully follow him. He performs some miracles, kidnaps some children.
Just kidnap some children.
Some woman lures this kid off with candy. I think were there actually two kids?
There might have been multiple through this whole scene. I don't know the exact. Yeah. It happens multiple times.
Yeah. They also kidnap a police officer, raise the dead, which is a little weird that he didn't raise his, dead priest friends, but we're not going to get into that.
No, he did. I want to get into it. He just let them die. We can talk about that in the other section. I know. He just raised a murder victim, but nah, the priest that got murdered by vampires who were helping him, nah, not important enough to raise from the dead. All right.
This is God's will.
Fair enough. This musical number ends abruptly as everyone kind of just runs away. And then Father Eustace, who I think that's how you pronounce his name, meets with Jesus, and they go for lunch. And Father Eustace tells him that people have been disappearing for months, but the church doesn't want to do anything because they're lesbians. And okay, so we forgot to clear up that everyone's a lesbian.
All of the vampires are lesbians, so are all of the women who are disappearing.
Yeah, so vampires are lesbians and women in general are lesbians. So the church doesn't want to help the people who have been disappearing because they are lesbians. And Jesus goes on a rant and says that judgment should be left to the higher powers, and the Lady Sappho, that's a quote by the way, need protection too. Jesus is given money by Father Eustace for supplies from the church collection plates, and then he goes to buy wooden stakes with that.
So there is my personal favorite scene where I think Jesus is carrying back wood to his little apartment.
Yeah.
And this car drives up, and out pop the atheists. It's like a clown car type thing, because 36 atheists in total all come out of the same little Jeep, and Jesus just beats their asses like 5 at a time. It's a very poorly choreographed fight scene. Almost at the end, a man with a very large stick does some kind of dancing around Jesus, who just kicks him in the face. He wrecks the atheist lead couple and leaves them all in a pile in the park and just goes on his merry way.
Yeah. After that, Jesus picks up his wood that he dropped during the fight with atheists, and he goes back to his apartment that the church gave him. And he meets Mary Magnum, who is at the the next big character. She's kind of just perched in his apartment, and she starts walking towards him with a gun. Um, as for her religion, she is part of the church, but it never specifies what. Our best guess, after reevaluating this clip many times, is she's Jewish, maybe. Um, Turns out, I don't know why she was walking with him towards him with a gun, because she's on his side, I guess. And she's like, I can help you relax, don't worry. And they go to a sauna together. And she works for a discreet branch of the church, and for some reason, she knows a lot about vampires because she's investigating them for the church. And then she flirts with Jesus, and they go shopping to get new clothes.
So, they go to this little thrift shop. Jesus tries on some clothes while Mary grabs some kind of racist salt and pepper shakers. She says that she collects them, which is a really arbitrary detail that doesn't matter. She helps him change clothes. There's this whole fashion montage, and she physically helps him change into clothes like a baby. She goes up, up. It's weird. And then a vampire comes in asking the thrift shop cashier if he knows where Johnny is. When they're checking out and leaving, the thrift shop owner, when Mary Magnum asks how much the salt shakers are, the thrift shop owner says, "For you, free as OJ." I can't get over that line.
I know, especially after the scene too. So Jesus is there and he's trying to buy his shirt, and the cashier charges Jesus $8.50 for his shirt, but then and it's a really messed up moment. He's fighting the cashier on the price, and then the girl comes by and she's just free. Anyway, then they go to a hospital, I guess, where they chase down the lead vampire, Max, and which is the main girl who was in the first scene and sexily bit the other lesbian. I don't know. And they follow her to the hospital, where Jesus sneaks in by jumping down a grate, but he gets stuck. So Mary has to help him, and they climb their way through the air ducts. Now, there's a crazy doctor who does skin grafts through, quote, the pseudo-science of religion, end quote, and he may or may not be a vampire. He works for the vampires, but, also he doesn't have fangs, and, it's never really established. He's just kind of insane. He's working on a woman who is becoming a vampire, and essentially what they do is they gather the lesbians' skins and graft it onto vampires so they can go out in the sun, is my best understanding of this. And so Johnny and Max go out to harvest more lesbian skin.
So they go to the lesbian drop-in center for a little insight on what this looks like. It is a large room with just a bunch of lesbians in it, and a poster on the wall of "But I'm a cheerleader," which is lovely. Johnny and Max murder all of the lesbians there before Jesus can get there, and the last one alive screams for a solid minute until Mary shakes her and throws her out of the room. Johnny tells Jesus to close his eyes to play a game, and then punches him in the face when Jesus does so. The two didn't actually take any lesbians with them, they just kind of left. And Mary tries to flirt with Max, but Max kills her while Johnny and Jesus fight each other. Jesus is left unconscious on the ground. The narrator is back asking who his neighbor counts as.
Again, the narrator just pops out of bushes randomly. The next scene, Jesus is on the ground, and we're calling this the Good Samaritan. So Jesus is in rough shape, and he's lying on the ground, and a clergy member and a cop pass by him, but they refuse to help Jesus. The cop says, "Nah, it's past my shift, I'm not paid to care." And then but the third person, the world's most unstylish drag queen, and her dog come to help. She nurses him back to health, and she is super over sexualized. And I don't know, this is a very weird scene where I have no clue what is happening.
Yeah, it's something special.
Like, she's flirting with him, but like, I don't, it's weird.
Yeah, she's never mentioned again because it very quickly changes to Jesus cutting out his steaks and getting some food. The worker flirted with him and brings him a bowl of whipped cream and cherries that he didn't order. It's literally just a bowl full of whipped cream with some cherries on it. And God decides to talk to him through the bowl of cherries and tells him he needs to find, this is a quote, Sage of the Wrestling Ring.
So Jesus goes out to find this foretold sage by the bowl of whipped cream and cherries that was God. And so they find him. His name is Santos, and he is a retired wrestler. And he has an assistant named Mrs. Oddball. And they fly their tiny plane to Jesus and are bombarded by reporters when he meets up with Jesus. Santos's old manager takes them, and Santos decides that because he calls himself Saint, he is a servant of the Lord. Now, Santos threatens the dude from the thrift store, or they're back in the thrift store, and Santos threatens the cashier to get info out of Johnny and his crew. And the doctors stuff a dead lesbian in the trunk of a junkyard car. Like, we very abruptly jumped between a random like plane landing area to a back to the thrift store. Then again, we're back in like a junkyard.
Then they're in a jazz club. It's probably a gay club, but there's not that many like women in there. Santos is totally head over heels over some woman in the club, and Jesus gets a shout out by Blind Jimmy Leper, which is his name. Jesus tries to scat, and he's terrible. And he finds out the club is full of vampires, and they all kill him with drumsticks, toothpicks. Oh, he kills them all. He and his Santos. Is it Santo or Santos?
It's
Santos. And with a little help from Mrs. Oswald, kill all of the vampires with drumsticks, toothpicks, and garlic breath. Santos confesses his love to the woman he saw earlier, and Max attacks him. Jesus comes about to find the club empty and shave his head again.
So I thought it was just so funny that I had to include what this scatting sounded like. So I prepped an audio clip. Are you ready for this?
Oh, good.
Here it is. And essentially that goes on for a while.
Yeah.
That was I just thought everyone should hear because it was really weird. All right, they are back at Jesus is back at his apartment, and he talks to his mom Mary through a statue, and she's delighted that Jesus is helping the lesbians because God loves them too. They get so much done, whatever that means. Mary shows up and to the thing, and Jesus is delighted, but it turns out she's a vampire now. And she and all her vampire friends break into the apartment and get their asses kicked by Jesus, and he nearly kills Mary, and this is Mary Magnum.
The narrator comes back and says, "Don't use medicine, heal your soul instead."
Now we very abruptly cut back to the junkyard where somehow Father Eustace, as now a vampire, not clear when this happened or why, um, but they knock him out and tie him to, or they knock out Jesus and tie him to two different cars, all driving in opposite directions, and they casually mention that they only kill lesbians because no one will miss them. Santos breaks free because apparently he was tied up at some point, and he and Jesus try to take down the vampires. A bunch of wrestling women jump out of the trunks of the cars, and a reporter films it live, and then Jesus is somehow at two places at once, so he's still at the junkyard, but he also attacks um, the crazy psycho doctor at the same time, so he's in two places at once, and then he's also still fighting Johnny at the junkyard. And the wrestler chicks beat Santos's ass until he somehow knocks them out. Like, they were very much overpowering him. I'm not sure where this change came from, but he kills them, and Jesus slits the doctor's throat and says, "Not even this separates you from my love." The doctor recovers by eating human flesh, so he's immortal of some kind. I don't know if he's a vampire, but still unclear. Jesus is stabbed in the chest by Father Eustace, and the hole in his chest causes an eclipse, and his divine light leaks out, absolutely wrecking all the vampires. Now, it seems cool, but how it is presented in the film is they cut a hole in Jesus's shirt and they just put a mirror underneath. And that's like the entire height of this plot. Now, Santos saves the girl he loves, who was a vampire, and he masks her while all the other vampires turn to ash. Jesus heals the girl, who we find out her name was Maggie, and she turns out to be the only bi vampire, and she loves Santos back. Jesus heals Mary Magnum, who is in love with Max, and begs him to bring back Max because she's the love of her life.
So we're back to the narrator, and his final note is, "Have love; it saves you from sin."
Do you want to take the final? Because I feel like you didn't get much to say.
Sure. Jesus preaches to the people. He says not to choose Christianity because people say to, but because they want to, and not to follow him, but his message. He gets a call from JP. I'm thinking John Paul, maybe John Peter. He says to trust yourself, know what's right, and 5 keeps the neighborhood alive. High 5. Santos and Maggie fly back in his plane, and Jesus grabs Miss Oddball's ass.
And that's...
Which...
yeah, that's essentially the entire plot of the movie. Not much happens.
Yeah, we didn't mention this earlier, but Miss Oddball's entire character is for people to come and grab her butt.
Yeah, just throughout them, she has like this prosthetic ass. Like, the actor has padding on, and during the whole movie, people are just constantly grabbing her ass.
Yeah.
So, I don't even know where to begin on this one. Let's see.
So, this movie genuinely doesn't feel like it has a $70,000 budget. Jesus' face is pretty much always cut off. Everything's cropped really, really terribly. It's a 2001 movie, so I can't tell if it's like just in some of the jokes are just in poor taste, or if it's like
intentionally racist.
Yeah.
Yeah, so one of the things I was thinking, dang it, I lost it, hold on, is, I forgot entirely what I was gonna say. Dang it, I should have written it down. Ah!
Um,
It was so good.
well,
Hold on.
we can get back to that thought.
Okay, so now that we've kind of summarized the plot, we're going to move into our next segment, which will be just kind of our general thoughts towards the movie and like just what we thought about it and as a whole. I remembered what I was going to say. This is an exciting moment, okay? So one of the things we find the atheists are one of Jesus's enemies, the ones getting out of the clown car. And just what plot point did they have? Like they didn't help the vampires. Like they served no plot purpose. Like they were just there because they hated Jesus and they only called him Jesus, which was like thoughts. What are your thoughts?
I think this was probably a Christian-made movie. Like, I can't be sure, but I personally really loved the atheist scene because if an atheist wrote that movie, that would make me love it even more. But this feels like a very Christian done movie.
Yeah, it was.
I feel like the atheists were just there as a test of strength.
Yeah, but like plot-wise, they added no substance whatsoever other than amusingly comedy at how bad this fight scene was.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. I don't take it up with the director.
I will. I will find them. Be like, what the heck? All right. Any thoughts?
Yeah. I feel like the vampires weren't very well developed. Like, in some scenes you could see them in mirrors, and some you couldn't. Some of them had fangs. The doctor was probably a vampire, and he ate flesh.
Yeah, like, it doesn't seem like there's a vampire lore going on. Like, there's no one consistent, do they have powers, don't they have powers, what powers do they have, what is a vampire? Like, there's no clear, like, I don't know, like, there is no clear description of what a vampire is in this movie.
Right, and it's said that they're mostly lesbians, but there are a bunch of, there are a few male vampires.
Yeah.
Which doesn't add up.
Yeah, I don't know what's going on with the vampires, because, like, there's, like, 2 guy vampires, and that's if you're not including the doctor, which was never confirmed or denied whether he was a vampire or just a really psycho zombie thing. I don't know. And then, like, the rest are lesbians. I don't know.
Right. Yeah, I feel like we watched that movie at least 4 times each.
Yeah, we started off and we each watched it as a joke, and then we realized we needed to bring this to the podcast here to share this with the world.
We watched this movie so you didn't have to.
But you should watch it. It is highly entertaining on how bad it is.
Right, we strongly recommend it.
We strongly recommend this one. Then we watched it. We recorded this podcast once already, and that died out a while ago. So now we redid it. So I think we're at like 4 or 5 times rewatching this movie, honestly, and every time it gets better.
Oh, it really does.
Is that all?
I think that's all.
That's it? Okay. Well, this has been Really Bad with Reviews with Abby
and Alex.
And thank you for watching.
Listening.
Yep, you can't see us.
We hope.
We hope. And depending on what platform you're on, like and give a comment on your thoughts.
Tell us if you watched the movie.
Yeah, we need to know. Have other people discovered this nonsense?
We will be back eventually with another truly terrible movie.
We will be back very soon.